Hello there once again, fellow peregrinos. Thank you very much for tuning into episode 15 of El Camino de Santiago Pilgrims podcast, where we talk about planning and preparation for life on the road to Santiago, as well as tips, tricks and hacks to make your journey along the way a lot more enjoyable. We want to put more K's in your days, more bounce in your boots. We want to take the grim out of the pilgrimage. To that end, today we're talking to Peter Ormond from the UK, who just recently finished walking the Camino on the 23rd of October. So, Peter, please take us back to the exact time and place you decided to walk the Camino and why you made that decision.
Well, it was back in April 2013. There was a series of TV programs on BBC by Simon Reeve about pilgrimages around the world. And one of those was the Camino Frances. For whatever reason, that sort of jumped out as one I would have to do. 500 miles, 800 kilometers. It sounded like a good challenge at the time. But I decided I couldn't do it in one go currently because I was at work. So it would have to wait until retirement. January 28th this year, I handed in my notice to retire, and the first thing that came to mind was I can do the Camino. So went back in the office, told my colleague, he asked what that was, and just replied, "You crazy." So that was it. It was a 6-year wait to make the decision to do it, and then another 6 months before I actually got on the road to do it.
Now the question I've got is, was the pull of the Camino one of the motivations for you to retire at that time?
No. The decision to retire was purely work-based.
Okay. But it was a great carrot and something to put on the horizon as soon as you had retired.
Well, it was. I mean, I actually retired 14 months sooner than I wanted, but things were changing at work, and some of the changes they were bringing in I couldn't agree with, so matter of principle and personal work ethic, so I just decided it was time to go.
And it was the Simon Reeve program on BBC about the Camino Frances. I had some people have told me about that actually, and I've never actually seen it, but you definitely recommend that people watch it.
Yeah, there was a series of programs. I can't remember how many now, but there was pilgrimages around the UK, because you've got quite a few up northeast leading to Lindisfarne, to the Holy Island. Then there's around Canterbury. And then, obviously, the series to Santiago. There's also those to Rome. Pilgrimages out in the sort of the Middle East region, Jerusalem, Israel, that sort of area. So, yeah, this one, for some reason, just sort of jumped out and said, I'm the one.
So that's where it first caught your eye. And it was, like you said, it was 6 years in the making before you actually got to start it. Very recently. And so you're in the UK. Where did you fly to? How did you get to the starting point?
Right. Well, I'd actually had a long weekend in London, seeing some friends. So I got the Eurostar to Paris. Had a couple of nights in Paris. I'd never been there before, so just had a day and a half of a whistle stop whiz around the city. And then on the 15th of September, I think it was, I got the train down to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, TGV, and then had 2 nights in Saint-Jean prior to the walk. I wanted to have a look around the town and also sort of soak up the atmosphere and just prepare myself psychologically ready for the walk, which I thought was quite beneficial. I wasn't just going down and getting straight into the Camino.
So just prepare yourself psychologically for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because a lot of people that have started in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, they've mainly flown or got a train to Biarritz or arrived in Biarritz somehow and then taken, I don't know, like the normal train or the Express Buricot, which is an express service which picks you up from the airport in Biarritz. But you actually took the TGV train direct from Paris to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port?
It was to Bayonne.
Right, so via Bayonne.
And then you change onto the local train that takes you to Saint-Jean.
Okay, so any international pilgrims that maybe could use Paris as their place to start to get to close to Saint-Jean, they could do that as well. Take the TGV train via Bayonne and get to Saint-Jean from there. Okay, brilliant. So you're in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, and you kind of preparing yourself psychologically, and tell us about your first few days. I know you mentioned in the notes that you'd sent me about how you prepared for the prospect of getting blisters. So tell us a little bit about that, and also about your first impression of the albergues.
Yeah, I joined a Facebook group, the Camino de Santiago 2019-2020. Closed group, and there's loads of information on there. And one item that popped up in all the years that I've been walking, I used to be in the army, so I did a lot of walking there as well. And holidays are activity based. I'd never heard of using Vaseline on my feet. So my philosophy was always 2 pairs of socks rub on socks rather than on your feet. So prior to going walking, I'd done some walking up in the hills of the north of England, and I tried the Vaseline, and it worked. So I thought I'd give it a go on the Camino. I had plenty of socks, so should it need doubling up, then I was fine there. And I had no blisters due to socks rubbing or anything like that. The only blister I got was down to my own stupidity of walking with grit in my shoes and couldn't be bothered to stop to take it out. So that was down to my carelessness as opposed to anything else, lack of preparedness.
Sometimes sorry, Peter, sorry to cut in. So the Vaseline
Vaseline's a great one, just simple.
And you put that on your feet before you walked, just a thin vial of Vaseline?
Yeah, every morning it was a ritual of just smothering my feet in Vaseline, on the toes, between the toes, and all around the feet. Anything that was going to basically be covered by the footwear. Just got on with it.
Fantastic. And it's interesting, that other tip that you mentioned about wearing 2 pairs of socks, because socks would only rub on socks, not on skin. Was that an old trick you'd learned in the army?
That was actually from my days in the Scouts.
Right, okay.
Just if you're out hiking in your boots and that, I always wear a thin pair of socks and a pair of thick socks. And then it is socks on socks rather than your feet rubbing directly on the socks with the sole of the shoe.
I think the only issue with that potentially on the Camino would be the amount of heat that would create inside your footwear, because obviously it can be very hot on the Camino. So maybe that would work for colder temps. I don't know, but it sounds like the Vaseline, vial of Vaseline on your feet. Did you do it during the day when you had a break or anything? Did you kind of reapply?
No, one off. That was it. I wasn't going to disturb what was working.
Okay, brilliant. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. So
Absolutely.
You definitely recommend putting Vaseline on your feet before you walk for the day. I met a guy in Navarre as well, a French guy, and he told me exactly the same thing. He told me he did it every 20 kilometers, and this fella had walked from Paris, and he'd already done 800 kilometers when I met him, just past Roncesvalles actually. So he agrees with you, and it definitely worked for you. And I really empathise with what you say, because sometimes you're walking and you're in the flow, aren't you? And you may feel a little stone in your shoe or a little bit of grit in your sock, and you think, do I really want to stop, take my backpack off my back, take my shoe off, take my sock off, just to get to this one piece of grit? But by the sounds of it, it's definitely worth doing, because
it's definitely worth it. It's a complex operation to get that bit of grit out.
It is, isn't it?
When you've got a pack on your back and your centre of gravity is altered, it is simpler to remove it, but it's just the hassle of taking everything off and putting it back on and then picking up your stride again. But yeah, I had a couple of days of real pain under the foot just because of the blister.
Right.
So maybe 20 minutes to have got rid of that grit would have solved a few days worth of pain.
Yeah, definitely. So the moral of that story is, if you do feel that piece of dirt or grit in your shoe, stop immediately, take it off, get rid of it, and you'll be better off for it in the long run.
definitely.
Yeah, great. I wondered if, obviously, how long were you in the army? How many years?
I did 12 years.
12 years. So was there any other kind of tips? You mentioned the socks. Anything else you applied from that time to your Camino?
Uh, Not really. It was more the converse, because in the army, when you're going out on exercise or activity, it was a case of your bag's not heavy enough, get stuff in it. So
Right.
my
Yeah.
difficulty was getting the weight down, because I was putting stuff in and thinking, oh, I'll need that and I'll need that. And then when you come to rationalising it, well, I don't. So it's just that changing the mindset from the army days of add the weight
Mm.
to the Camino of try and reduce the weight.
I think the main guideline that keeps popping up every bit of research I've done is using the 10% of your body weight reference point guideline as how heavy your backpack should be. But I think it's all about trial and error. That could be too much for you. That might not be enough. And lots of people say that also, that if you're maybe not so tall, then you could potentially have a bit more because you've got a lower center of gravity as well. But it's all about what works for the individual. Have you any idea? Something tells me, because you were in the army, you were probably very, very thorough in your preparation. How much weight did you have on your back? Did you know when you first started?
I actually weighed it when I came home, and it was about 10 kilos.
Right. Okay.
I couldn't get a realistic weight when I went initially, because the pack was. When I did the trip in Paris and Saint Jean, I actually wore clothes which I wasn't going to use on the Camino.
Yeah.
So the Camino clothes were actually in the pack as well. So it was an untrue weight. But when I came back, it was about 10 kilos.
Right, which is not too bad.
No, it's not. And, the 10% of body weight, I suppose it's an indicative guideline.
Yes.
I didn't go with that. I got the stuff out that I felt I would need. And it was basically what I was wearing and a change. For underwear, there was a spare pair of underpants, and there was 2 extra pairs of socks. And then it's obviously the minimal medical stuff, because we got pharmacies on the way, and then just your washing kit.
So you don't actually need to take a really fully packed first aid kit, because whatever you might need along the way, you can buy in pharmacies in the towns, villages, and cities you pass through.
Yeah. I mean, there was one thing I did need on the way, which I didn't have at home anyway, and it was an ankle strap. But I bought that at a pharmacist. So yeah, it's cater for your immediate needs, but don't overplan, because you are in a civilized country and there are shops around.
Exactly. Great advice. So while we're talking of kit lists, is there one thing that you took that you never used and you would never take again on your next Camino? I don't need that. I didn't need it.
Well, the only thing I did take was, I sort of realised it was getting towards the autumn time.
Mm-hmm.
So I packed a very lightweight fleecy hat, a buff, and a thin pair of gloves. And they were stuck at the bottom of my rucksack in a dry sack, just for in case. There was one morning when I could have used the gloves, but they were so far down the pack, I just had cold hands until I got my next cup of tea. So that was the only thing, really. Everything else was used.
So the warm hat and gloves in autumn you didn't really need. It's interesting because I have walked the Camino Portuguese in winter, and every single morning I needed, and my wife needed, a hat, gloves, and we also had a snood, the thing that goes around your neck.
Yeah.
And we would use them from probably something like 8 in the morning until 11 in the morning, when the sun came up and you got a bit too hot and your head started steaming, and you took it off, and then you'd be okay for the rest of the day. So autumn pilgrims, by the sounds of it, Peter, you didn't need those hat and gloves, so maybe don't take those. But if you're going in the winter, then for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So great advice. Thanks there, Peter. Let's go back to the albergues, your first couple of nights. And for those of you that don't know, the albergues are special hostels for pilgrims that are discounted. They're scattered along the way. You need your Compostela, which is your certificate of completion. Sorry, your pilgrim's passport. You need your credencial. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself there. At the end of the journey. So you need a credential, credential which you can pick up from the various pilgrim offices at albergs. And these will gain you entry as long as you're picking up your 2 stamps along the way to get into those hostels. Did you stay in the albergs, the special pilgrim albergs, and have you any survival tips?
Well, I did a mix and match. I put a comment on this Facebook group about albergs and hotels, and I got people coming back saying, "Oh, you're not going to the real Camino spirit if you're not staying in albergs." The Camino is an individual's Camino, so where they stay is, to my mind, academic. It's down to what the individual wants, can afford, etc. So I'd pre-booked a night in the hotel at Roncesvalles, and I'd also pre-booked the end of day 2, and I stayed on at Erdenes, which is a step on from Zaburi. And that was a 4-berth, a 4-man room, as it were, 2 bunk beds. And that was really good, excellent place. But I'm a very light sleeper, and even earplugs are a waste of time, really. There was a guy in there who was a light snorer, but it was just enough to keep me awake. The next big one was an alberg at San Juan Bautista, linked to a church at Gragnon, and multi-occupancy, a thin mattress, and I just got no sleep at all because it was just too noisy. So I had a mix really of albergs and hotels, private rooms, just to keep my sanity going for some sleep.
Yeah, I mean, that's understandable. I mean, if earplugs don't work for you, then the chance of getting a decent sleep.
No, I mean, I'm in a fortunate position of having retired and got a good payout from a pension. I can afford it, but I am aware that there are those who are sort of students who can't afford it, or those who genuinely through life can't afford it, and have to stay with the albergs. Yeah, I think it's a personal choice at the end of the day.
It is. I mean, it would be a bloody shame if people didn't do the Camino just because they were worried about the albergs. And I think it's great that you're saying that for some people that might find that daunting, there is another option. You can stay in different accommodation. You don't have to just be in hostels where you're sharing sleeping space with 50, 100, 20, whatever it is, people in, what can be a snoring symphony throughout the night. I mean, if and that's
it's
just
a mix and match throughout.
Yeah.
I had no sort of forward planning on a daily basis of I'm going to book a hotel here, a hotel there, or whatever. There's places I turned up, and I think one place I tried 2 or 3 different places before I actually found a bed. So it was all down to how far I was going to walk that day, and if I got to my destination, was there still fuel in the tank to go on a bit further? And so, yeah, some of it was very much ad hoc, and yes, towards the latter stage, there was planning ahead and pre-booking.
Yeah, and like you say, I mean, the way you survived was basically by mixing and matching. So on the odd occasion, you'd stay in the municipal or the private albergs, and sometimes you'd go, where you've got your own room, so you're catching up on sleep that you've lost from spending nights in the alberg. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, a fact of the Camino. If you want to, I don't know, save some money and stay in those albergs where you have to share sleeping space, then sometimes it can be character building. And for me personally, if that's one positive way of looking at it, I was so tired by the time I finished walking every day that I would just absolutely collapse onto my bed and sleep like a log, So I mean, it's what works for the individual. And for those of you that maybe do find that a bit daunting, sharing sleeping space, like you say, Peter, there are other options. And did you ever find problems? Did you ever have one day where there wasn't anywhere for you to stay in town and you had to keep walking on?
No. It was just trying the town and going across the different places. But no, I never had to go on.
So that's another fear that you can dispel as well for those that are kind of sitting on the fence about walking on the Camino.
I suppose it's seasonal. The time I went, you're out of the main season then. I did notice there was a a reduction in the numbers of people who were on the route as I was going along. So that might account for it. But I would imagine that in the high season, it might be a case of trying to plan ahead. But if there's big municipalities there, then I would imagine that the chances of getting into somewhere are greater.
So we're saying basically, if you're going to walk summertime, then it might be a good idea to book in advance. But again,
just do your planning, look through what stages you're going to do, and don't necessarily go for the end stage on whatever guidebook you're using, but possibly think about stopping one short or going one or two further, depending on what's in the legs.
Yeah, because I mean the Camino Frances, for those that don't know, I think it's divided up into 31 stages, but you don't 33 stages. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily have to walk from the start of one stage to the end of one stage. You can stop in the middle, go past that stage if you feel like you've got a bit more in the tank, like you say. So sometimes it's about kind of looking beyond those stages, and you might find some accommodation there. I remember I'd arrived in Puente la Reina in Navarre, and it was so busy there. It was like 300 people in there, and I was with two Austrian guys, and we thought, we didn't really fancy standing in a place that was so busy. And we did an extra 7 kilometers, and we found an albergue where there was only 7 beds and there was no one in it, which is, sometimes is another tip. You can just go a little bit further, and do a bit of an extra mile, and sometimes that is the road less traveled. So brilliant tips again. Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
So we've talked about one thing you took that you never used, but is there one thing, if you were to go on the Camino again, which it sounds like you will, that you will definitely be the first thing at the top of your kit list?
Walking poles.
Walking poles. Could you explain why?
I was never an advocate for walking poles, and then back in 2016 I did a walk in Papua New Guinea, and they were recommended.
Wow.
So I bought some poles then, had a practice around some of the hills in the UK, and they were worth the weight in gold on the Camino. Absolutely. There's some pretty steep ups and downs. They weren't used all the time. They were generally just used for the really steep parts, either up or down. But I found, when you're slogging up a hill and you get your walking poles out, suddenly your posture changes.
Yeah.
And those walking poles are just an extra pair of legs driving you on, and certainly coming down on some of the rockier parts, let's say day 2 and down into Roncesvalles as well. You need those just for a bit of extra support because it's quite rocky and a bit of loose scree there. So yeah, I swear by walking poles. The only thing I would say is I did notice a lot of people using walking poles, and they weren't necessarily using them correctly. They weren't of the right height to get the right the benefit out of them, in as much as ideally having your forearm at right angles, and then using them properly rather than just letting them drag or doing little steps with them. There is an art to using them, so I would suggest that if anybody's looking at using walking poles, possibly have a look on YouTube and see if there's anything on there that just gives them some tips on how to use them properly and get the most effect out of them.
You mentioned having your arms at a right angle, and how far up the poles do you think your hands should be? Well,
the ones I've got lecky poles, and you've got a hand strap from the hand grip, and that should be firm. So when your hands are in it, that's holding you firm, so you can actually use the poles. If you've done cross-country skiing, then it's that sort of a thing where you're using the poles to propel you along. When you adjust your poles, then as you stand with your pole on the ground, your forearm should be basically parallel to the ground, so at 90 degrees to the top of the walking pole. It's just a case of adjusting your walking poles so that every time you put them together again or get them out, that they are of the right height for you to get cracking.
Brilliant.
If you're buying them from like an outdoor shop, there should be some experienced staff there who can give some advice.
Okay, so that's some great advice there. And what we'll do, as per your great recommendation, we'll find a video. We'll put that on our Facebook page, El Camino de Santiago Pilgrims Podcast. We'll find a YouTube video. We'll put that on there for you. And you can follow Peter's instructions and those instructions on there to get the most out of your walking poles. Great advice again. Thank you very much, Peter. So let's talk about a few of your favourites. What your favourite hotel or albergue where you stayed and why? One you'd recommend your fellow peregrinos walking the Camino Frances should stop by.
I stopped at the Sol a Sol in Hornilos. I'd actually walked past it and then went back to it. And it was great. I was offered a top bunk in a 4-man room. I said, have you got any other places? He said, well, if you're on the top floor, there are 3 single beds. So that's where I stayed. The only downside with that, if I'd needed it, was the toilet was 2 floors down, but I didn't. Very quiet. The welcome was great, clean, tidy, comfortable, and a really good breakfast. It's also the place where Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez stayed when they were filming The Way.
Wow!
So the poster is up in the dining area with their autographs. So yeah, so that's the Sol a Sol in Hornilos.
So if you want to follow in the footsteps of the stars, and more importantly, Peter Ormond, then that's where you want to stay.
I don't know that Martin Sheen's heard of me.
Maybe that's why he stayed there, because he knew you were going to stay there. But so yeah, that army guy, we're going to stay where that army guy Peter stayed. So it's the albergue Sol a Sol, that's in Hornios, right? Is that?
Yeah, that's at the end of stage 13 if you're using the Braille book.
Mm-hmm. And that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is just after Burgos. If I'm not mistaken,
it's just after Burgos.
Off the top of my head, yeah. Okay, great. So there you go. That's a great place to stay. Martin Sheen stayed there, and Peter recommends it as well. So, following the footsteps of the stars. So, let's talk about, and Peter, of course. So, where was I? Well, I was having a little chuckle to myself there. So, that's one place you stayed. Was there a place you didn't stay but wish you did?
No, not really, because I picked up loads of suggestions off the Facebook group, and my guidebook is actually full of post-it stickers with places. I only looked at those sorts of things had I been going to stay in a place. So no, apart from injecting 2 rest days, I'd got no forward planning as to where I was actually going to stay on the way. So no, I can't say there was a place that I wished I'd stayed.
Was there a town or village that you walked through and you saw it and you thought, wow, that looks amazing, but I just got to keep going? Nowhere like that stands out? For me, Molina Seca was one. And there was like a monastery in ruins. I think it was San Anton, I think it's called. But yeah, nowhere like that.
There were places, but it was just a case of looking around them as I went through.
Yeah,
So I added 2 rest days already, so I knew where I was going to stay for those to have a look around. But other ones, there's such a mix and match of different villages, absolutely beautiful places out there, really old with character. But you can't stop in every one and look around every one, otherwise you'd never get the Camino done.
And that's a good excuse to go back and do it again. That's what I thought to
well,
myself.
There is that.
Yeah, it always gives you that get out clause. I'm sorry, my lovely wife, but I didn't see Molina Seca, so I'm going to have to go back. My other recommendation would be Villafranca del Bierzo. Villafranca del Bierzo. I'll put a link to that on our Facebook page as well. And I just remember walking through there at like 7 a.m, and it just looked amazing. Very kind of ornate buildings and boutiques and places where you look like you want to stop and have a wine and a bit of cheese and sample the local cuisine. And it was 7 a.m, so obviously I wasn't going to start drinking wine at that time. But more like the cafe.
I didn't know there was a time limit on wine, but.
Well, there you go. Every hour is 1 o'clock, I guess, for some people.
Yeah,
and why not?
In the world.
So while we're on the subject of food and wine, was there a specific Spanish dish, food, dessert, anything that you're like, I love that, I wish I could take that home with me?
That's the Santiago cake.
Amazing.
Yeah, beautiful, delicious. Yeah.
And
So yeah, I indulged in that in Santiago.
and that, just if you see that on the menu in Spain, it's going to be called Tarta de Santiago. So look out
Yes.
for that. It's like a sponge cake, isn't it? With a
It's almond.
lemony almond zest,
Yeah,
almond cake, and it is dusted with icing on top, isn't it?
yeah.
Really good
And
stuff.
if they're going to be fancy, they'll put the Camino cross on it as well.
That's it. Sometimes they etch that in with the icing, don't they? Which is
Yeah.
very impressive. It's a bit of cake art there as well. So you've heard it there from Peter, the Santiago cake, Tarta de Santiago. Give that a try. While we're on the subject of eating as well, and I didn't have this in the original questions that I sent to you, but it did come to me just while I was talking about that. Can you remember a restaurant where you ate, or a bar, or anything like that you'd recommend your fellow peregrinos go to?
There's actually a couple in Santiago, but there's one of the main streets is just full of restaurants. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it was on the day I arrived. I'd been to the Pilgrim Mass, met up with another pilgrim, and went there and had an absolutely cracking steak to celebrate my completion.
Is it the
No.
bar? Is it the street where all the bars, the restaurants, cafes are
Yes.
set underneath the white arches kind of thing, and you walk
Yeah,
underneath them?
yeah. This restaurant begins with a P, but I can't think of the name of it at the top of my head. I'll see if I've got it in my phone while we're talking.
Well, what I can do is as well, I'll look up the name of that street, because I've actually I've written a blog post, I think, about that street as well, and I just off the top of my head I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, we'll put a link to that on our Facebook page, so you know when you get to Santiago where you can reward yourself with a good steak and a good drink under the myriad of bars under the arches there. So yeah, if you can look that up, if you can look it up, no worries. If not, we'll find. We'll put links out on our Facebook page anyway, so no worries. So,
Yeah.
I think I'm getting the message that you probably would walk the Camino again. And if you were to do that, is there one thing you'd do differently? Maybe packing, maybe slower, faster. One thing you might do differently.
I would probably cut down some of the lengths of days, and probably take a little bit longer over the Camino. There's some days were quite long. And off the top of my head now, I don't know why they were long. I think it might have been just a case of making into the next stage. But certainly, I would look at reducing the lengths. After all, you're not there to punish yourself. It's there to sort of enjoy it and take it all in.
What was the longest day you walked?
Oh, let me just have a look. I've just actually sad as it is, I've just been putting a spreadsheet together.
It's not sad at all. We've all been there, Peter. We've all done
Yeah.
it. Let's hold our hands up. I've done it.
At the moment, I've got a 20.82 miles day, and that was day 6, I think it was. So, 21 miles, I think, was probably going to be the longest.
Right. So you'd cut that down to extend your Camino to prolong the adventure and the joy as well.
Yeah, I've just found a 22-mile day, so just think a bit about what you're doing, and if you don't need to beat yourself up, then don't necessarily do it.
Because at the end of the day, the quicker you walk the Camino, the quicker you're going to be back into everyday life, which I think
know.
In this conversation we had before the interview, you did mention that you feel a bit hollow now, don't you, because it's over?
Yeah, it's certainly the day after I got into Santiago. You get up the following morning, and There's no need to put the Vaseline on the feet, and there's no need to sort the pack out. And it was just a case of, what am I going to do today? So you migrate back to the square and just watching other pilgrims coming in, and it just felt a little hollow. I mean, at the moment, I'm planning for another trip, so that's sort of distracting me at the moment. But just getting back into UK way of life again.
Civilian way of life in a way, isn't it? I think it's when you've been, like you say, when you are a pilgrim and you've got that routine every day where it's eat, walk, sleep, and just do it for 20, 30, 40 days in a row. It's quite a... do you feel it was a come down a little bit when you finished?
Yeah, it was. I sort of likened it. I was doing daily blogs, and I likened it to sort of going to work, because you get up, you go and do what you got to do, you come home, you have your tea, you go to bed, you get up, and it becomes like a routine. Albeit, it's not a 5-day week. You're out there walking. I think I did 11 or 12 days in one stretch before I had a rest day. But it just becomes a way of life, and you don't even think about it as to what day it is and all the rest of it. It's just a case of, right, this is where I'm going to get today, that sort of area. Let's get up and get cracking.
I read a book called The Brazilian Adventure by a guy called Peter Fleming. Incredible book. It was written in the 1930s, and he was a British explorer that went into the Amazon to search for an explorer that had gone missing, and it was all virgin territory. And really, really amazing story. If you can get your hands on it, I don't even know if it's for sale anymore. I found it in a church jumble sale, and I just read the blurb, and I just thought that is exactly up my street. And there was a quote from it that says, "Routine is the most portable form of domesticity." And I think there's that routine on the Camino that makes you feel at home. That routine, because I know at the end of each day walking, what I would do was I would sit back, have a look at my guidebook, look at how far I'd come, look at how far I'd go tomorrow, look at where I'm going to procure supplies, food, water, and that was as complicated as life got. And
I think it's the simplicity of it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
But within that comfort blanket of routine.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean that's when you get home, that routine changes to something else, and yeah, that's kind of hard. But you've said you've got a new trip on the horizon. What's the next trip?
Yeah, I'm heading off to Kathmandu for 2 days, then off to Bhutan for 3 weeks.
Beautiful. Are you going to do some walking there as well?
There will be. Won't be quite as intense.
Yeah.
It's. I think the longest day is about 4 hours, but that won't be at the same pace or distance as the Camino, because that'll be catering for people just going on holiday, as it were, rather than anything more adventurous.
Yeah, and probably while you're flying over there for your next trip, because it's probably going to be quite a long flights to Kathmandu and stuff. Is there something that came into your mind while you were walking, all that headspace we have when we're walking, like a lesson, an insight, something you've thought to yourself, when I get home I'm going to change that, or something you feel a lesson from the road, a standout insight or lesson?
The main thing that's come from it is change of perspective on life. In my last career, my perspective on life was changed just through the job role. And then just talking to people on this Camino, and it might just be a quick conversation as you're walking along, or in the evenings, just when you're sitting in the albergue and there's a couple of you just chatting. There's so many reasons why people were going, and it was to remember loved ones who have gone, and set it up as a challenge just to bring them closer to them in their own space and time. There was people out there who are dealing with their own domestic issues, and they'd gone there just to clear their heads. And it was just the nature of why people were doing a not simple walk, because it's certainly not a walk in the park. And you could simply say, well, why don't you just go to the park and sit in some peace and quiet under the autumn leaves? But here people are out there walking 30, up to 35, 40 days to try and clear their heads. And I think it's a case of divorcing themselves from society and from the situation. But just listen to people going through their own personal issues. We just put life in perspective and think of the trivialities that perhaps people bottle up or work on, and they think, well, just how important is it really? So I think that's the biggest thing that's come away from the Camino for me, is putting life in perspective.
In some ways, life off the Camino it should actually be a lot easier, because you don't have to think about where you're going to get your food and water. It's already in the fridge at home, or it's in that supermarket just around the corner.
Yeah.
Life is so much easier in that way, but in some ways, because that's already done for you, it can be harder. And like relating that to those, those sometimes trivial issues that play on our minds, that can, I don't know, wind us up or get on our nerves, or we can, we can go off center because of those. I was saying to my wife when we walked the Camino Portuguese last time, I said, this is too easy, life at home now. We've been walking, we've had to think about where we're going to get our food, where we're going to get our water, where we're going to sleep. We've got all those things done already, so this is too easy, but in some ways that makes it hard. I
think it's adapting to ordinary life again, if you want, if that's the right phrase.
And in many ways, like, those ordinary days are actually extraordinary days, because there will be some points in life where you're going to long for those ordinary days again, because problems may come around, major problems. They could be health problems, they could be anything that life can throw at us that is outside of our control sometimes. Like you say, with that, I think the Camino gives you that window to look back at ordinary life and say, actually, it's actually all right. That wasn't a problem. What did I ever worry about? There wasn't anything to worry about. So it puts things in perspective.
And I think it's really trying to bring something back with you of that nature. Just when you get back home, and yes, you have the period of the honeymoon period of getting back into your life again, but try and remember what you picked up on the Camino, and don't just fall back into the old ways. If there's a lesson that you've learned, then try and keep and develop it.
That was the hardest part of the Camino for me, actually, the aftermath for my first Camino. The 12 months after that was tough. For you, what was the hardest part of the Camino?
Day one. It was that bit from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port over the Pyrenees to Roncesvalles. As I've alluded to, I tend to do activity-type holidays, and I'm a great believer in preparing, either with physically or with kit, so that when I go, I've got no surprises. There's going to be nothing that's going to make it an ordeal, rather than the adventure that I want. So prior to going on the Camino, I'd had a fitness program done for me in the gym. I go regularly anyway, but they tailored a program to concentrate on obviously the legs and stepping and treadmill, the Stairmaster and the Jacob's ladder machine. I'd also done some walking up in the Cheviots up in the north of England. And I found on the first couple of walks there that I wasn't hill fit. So after a few more walks, I was better. But when you get into day one, and it's just, as soon as you leave Roncesvalles, Saint-Jean, you're straight up.
Yeah.
And it's up, and it's up, and it's up. And then when you get to the top, it's straight down. And it's just brutal on the legs on day one. So that was the hardest part. And then after that, you just sort of adapt and like I say, I came to use my walking poles a lot more, and use them as a tool rather than an encumbrance.
So the moral of that story is preparation. Do a dress rehearsal.
Yeah, I mean, I apart from the physical side, I'd actually looked through all the kit I'd got. I'd got rucksacks, I'd got trail shoes. The trail shoes were well travelled, so
You broke them in.
I replaced them with like for like.
Right.
I'd actually gone to one of the good outdoor shops and had a look around the whole section they'd got.
Which outdoor shop was it? Just so people
It was
can
go outdoors.
go outdoors in the UK, right? So go
Yeah,
outdoors. Anyone in the UK, that would be a good place to start for your kit.
and they in the foot section they've got cutaways of the footwear, so you can actually see how they're made up. The ones I'd got, I liked them, so I was looking to stick with that brand, but I also looked at other ones, tried a few on, spoke to the staff. Also got a new rucksack. Ended up with a low alpine, and that's got the web on the back, so it doesn't actually sit on your back. So you've got that air zone to stop your back sweating, and just updated some of my base layers. The wicking t-shirts, got some new ones. When I went up north, I basically tried all the kits. I filled the rucksack with weight. I think I carried 12 kilos on one day, and that was just with my SLR camera kit and lenses, just to add weight to it. And I was happy with it. I say it was just really getting the physical side then. Knew I wasn't hill fit, so a few more walks. And it was when I tried the double socks versus the Vaseline, and that worked well. So yeah, it's really preparation. If you go without preparing, then there is the old project management thing. If you fail to prepare, you're prepared to fail.
Yeah.
Now I know some people are quite happy to just pick up the kit and go. For me, I'd rather go and know it's not going to be an ordeal, but it's going to be something that I'm prepared for.
Yep. I think my old boss, used to say, proper prior planning prevents poor performance.
Correct.
So that's an
that
old
was
maxim
one
I've
thing
always
I always
remembered. Yeah, I've always remembered that one as well. And you mentioned the low alpine rucksack with the web, so it's not actually on your back, so you don't sweat, which is a really, really good idea as well, actually. So you recommend that one. And like we say, the moral of the story is lots of trial and error. Do a dress rehearsal in your Pilgrim clothing and kit and with your bag, and just see what works and what doesn't. Is it too heavy? Is it too light? Can you put in a bit more, a bit less? And obviously wearing the footwear that you're going to use on the Camino as well. So, and with a similar terrain, because like you said, you've gone up north. So, so you got through that hard day.
On the kit, I've mentioned I've been to. Excuse me a minute. I mentioned I've been to Papua New Guinea. I've done the Kokoda track, which is quite a hefty walk. And when I was there, I'd used water bottles. Towards the end, I was coming down with heat stroke through not drinking enough. So from there on in, I've always used a water bladder. And I made sure that this rucksack had the facility for that.
Yeah.
So maybe water bladder is something else to consider, because you're not stopping to get your bottle out or getting somebody else to get it out, and your water is there on tap to prevent dehydration.
Yeah, and I've always used one of those as well.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, it's just like you have it's like a pouch that goes into. It can slip into the side pocket of your backpack, and it has a tube that kind of goes over your shoulder. It's got a teat on the end, and you can withdraw water to hydrate as on the go. So definitely a great idea. Okay, so
another thing I did.
Yeah.
I also took the electrolyte tablets, that sports people use.
Yep.
And I dissolved about 500 ml of that every day. And before I got out walking, I just drank it. So at least I topped up the electrolytes before I went. I'd got some liquid in the body before I went.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore I knew I wasn't going to if I was sweating excessively, I wasn't sapping the body of the electrolytes it's got, because I've got that extra reserve in there.
Great idea, actually. Yeah, great tip. So electrolyte tablets as well, they can dissolve in your water, can't they?
Well, I kept them out of the bladder because I know after a while they can taint it.
Right.
So I got a separate water pouch which falls down to nothing, and I basically made it up in that. And before I even left the albergue or wherever, I drunk it, and that was back in the rucksack out the way then. So I was topped up with electrolytes before I was going.
Great idea. So that's another great tip there. Thank you very much, Peter. So just before we finish, I want you to talk about what was the best part of the Camino for you. We're going to finish on a high.
Oh, goodness me.
It's like saying, what's your favourite Beatles song, isn't it? But
yeah,
the camaraderie.
The camaraderie. Just I went there on my own, so I knew nobody. And you get walking, but you know everybody because everybody talks. And even if it's just a Buen Camino as you're going past, invariably there might be a little bit of conversation and there's language barriers. But it's just everyone was so friendly. One particular day, there's a couple of blokes caught up with me, and it turned out it's a Belgian father and son. We got chatting. I stopped to take a picture. They carried on walking. I came off the hill and I saw these people waving at me from a cafe, so I popped in, sat and had a croissant, a cup of tea with them. I got up and cracked on while they were sorting their kit out. And then I got to Castro Jerez, and I went into the first church there for a look around. When I came out, they were stood outside. And we got talking. They said, oh, we thought we'd stop and say goodbye because we're carrying on and you're stopping here. Oh, how long have I known them? I knew them that morning. I probably spoke to them about an hour and a half, maybe all day. And there they were stopping to say goodbye. I've never seen them since. All I know is it's Mark and Yonsa. And that's it. It's the people, I think, who are the highlights for me along the way.
Yeah, they definitely, your fellow pilgrims definitely enrich your experience, and I couldn't agree more with that. And that is the Camino magic at work right there.
Yeah.
I met some very quirky, funny characters along the way. I met a guy that was walking around the whole world to raise money for AIDS victims. Any kind of similar quirky, funny characters you met as well?
There was one. It was a priest actually, and it was at in Hornilos.
Right.
Again, back to Hornilos. I got to the Pilgrim masses when I could, and at the end of the Pilgrim mass, the priests generally call the pilgrims forward for the pilgrim prayer and the blessing, and this priest did likewise. But when he got us up to the front, it was a case of right, English, Italian, Spanish, get into your language groups. And so we did, and we had us each read out our pilgrim prayer in our own language. And then at the end he says, right. And he looked at the English group, he says, sing a song. And so one of the Americans said, well, what about Amazing Grace? And so we sang Amazing Grace. You could see the other group just looking and smiling, thinking this is coming to us. But it was a great icebreaker, a real great way to end a day's walking. Wonderful priest. So anybody who's in Hornilos, whether you go to the masses regularly or not, go to that mass. It's wonderful, really good.
So you recommend the mass in Hornilos? Okay, well I'm going to look that up as well, and put a link to the town and hopefully the church where, if we can find that, where that was held. And again, that is that camaraderie you're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. It was just a wonderful way to end the day.
Yeah, it's perfect. So let's just finish now, Peter, by asking this last question. Imagine 5 years ago, 2013, when you first saw that program, Simon Reeve on the BBC, which you're highly recommending your fellow peregrinos watch as well. I think you can get it on BBC iPlayer as well, can't you? Yeah, that's right, yeah. BBC iPlayer. Imagine you've got that version of yourself sitting in front of you right now. Maybe he's got some fears, he's a bit apprehensive, not sure about walking the Camino. Now you've walked it, what would you say to him to convince him that he's definitely the right thing?
It's just it's something totally different to just going on a mountain walk, to just going out for a day's walk. Um, as I sort of alluded to, you're meeting such a diverse group of people who are all there for the same purpose. So nobody's got any hidden agenda. Everybody's open and chatty. Takes you out your comfort zone, and it just pushes you to another level. Also, it's that time for peace on the way. You've got time when you're walking on your own, so time for thoughts, reflections, review your life, review where you're going, change your perspective on things. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity for just, I don't know, is it body cleansing, just to review the way you are?
Mind cleansing as well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in every single way. I mean, I've said it before on this podcast. He's literally like when your computer's not running very well and you do a factory reset or a hard reset, and all of a sudden it works like it's brand new again. And the Camino does that for your body, your mind, and your soul as well. So,
but it's taking you away from your day-to-day run-of-the-mill life, whether you're a student, whether you're working, whether you're retired. Everybody gets into a rut, and it's just good to sometimes climb out of that rut and just see what else is around. And I think the Camino does it, because it's where you're walking. You've got the hills, you've got the Masata, you've got glacier, you've got the trees, you've got the sun, you've got the rain, you've got the other pilgrims, and you've also got the local people who are quite receptive to the pilgrims coming through.
Oh, the Spanish. I mean, I fell in love with Spain, and when you talk about those local people, I mean, there's one story where I was walking through, and I saw in the blog post that you sent me, Los Arcos, and a lady. I had terrible blisters by this point. It was like day 6 or day 5, whatever it was, and some lady came out running after me, just screaming at me in Spanish, very animated as they do, and I really had no clue what she was saying at the time, but she gave me like a pill, and she was like eyeballs popping out of her head, like poking her tongue out, pointing under her tongue as if to say, like, stick it under there kind of thing. So she was just trying to help me with my blisters. This lady didn't know me from Adam, and she just like insisted. So she'd obviously seen, people pass by with blister problems. Maybe she did this to everybody. I don't know, but it, like you say, is that Camino magic at work, and it is your fellow pilgrims and also the locals, the natives, that do enrich your experience and the simple.
Coming out of one village, there was an old lady walking towards me, and I always sort of spoke, "Hola, and buenos dias." And she spoke and then started talking in Spanish. I thought, whoa, I just said, no, inglesi, I don't understand. And, she smiled, and I put my hand out, and we shook hands, and the smile got bigger, and then she said, Buen Camino. And I walked on, and I thought, that was 30 seconds. And that was just a little gem of a moment.
It is, yeah, it is those moments, yeah. Yeah. I think that those that icebreaker Buen Caminos, I would say it's all and sundry, and it would, for some strange, it would give me goosebumps, like just saying it to people and people saying it back to me. I remember I was where was I? Just after Astorga, and I was climbing up to some mountain range, the mountains of Leon, and I was passed on horseback by some pilgrims, and every one of them, like, I think there's 3 or 4 of them, they said Buen Camino without fail, every single one of them as they passed, and I just saw them dissolve into the mountainside ahead, and the dust, kind of kicking up in the air from the hooves of the horse. I just thought, this is something magic, man. This is just amazing.
It's a totally different world. It's not like normal hill walking that you might do in the UK or wherever.
Yeah. It is like time stopped 500 years ago, isn't it? Like on the Camino de Santiago. Time stopped 500 years ago. In some ways, none of it as modernised, but that's its magic.
That's the beauty of it.
That is the beauty of it, yeah. So I think on that extremely high point, on that lovely topic, we'll say thank you so much, Peter Ormond, for sharing your Camino with us, for reliving your Camino. Buen Camino, fellow peregrino.
Buen Camino to you.
wanderer, a life adventurer, said he's a secrets philosopher. He's a wandering wanderer.